Let's see. Okay, so this will help me to try to explain why I spend so much time talking about the servant song in Isaiah when I talk about the death of Yeshua, the death of Jesus. So, there's no chapters and verses, right?
Yes.
But afterward, when chapters and verses were put in, guess how many chapters Isaiah has? 66. So it's a huge book, right? I focus on, out of that whole book.
Psalms have 100 or something.
Yeah, Psalms have 100 chapters. That's another big chunk. But the difference with Psalms is we already know every single chapter stands alone. Do you understand what that means? Stand alone?
No.
It means that every psalm contains a story in itself. One psalm doesn't refer to another psalm, right? One chapter doesn't refer to another chapter. It's all by itself. Each chapter is its own animal, its own thing, its own psalm. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like Genesis there's a lot of chapters, but there's a big continuous story. Isaiah's like that, big continuous story. But I focus on Isaiah chapter 52, verses 13, through Isaiah chapter 53, verse 12. This little passage. So I think there's like 15 verses that I focus on. And I believe that this small passage stands alone in a way, stands by itself for explaining the death of Jesus. Do you think that that's weird that out of 66 chapters you pick a small section to say, hey, this is the thing I'm going to keep referring to and talking about? Like if you read a whole story, right? Like let's say you try to read the whole book of Isaiah. There's a lot that's being talked about in the whole book. But I'm pulling out a small little sliver over and over again. I'm saying this tiny portion.
So you keep it sticking out the same sliver?
Yeah, I keep pointing to the same sliver, the same section. And I'm not the first to do that. When early Second Temple apostles, who were Jewish apostles, were trying to explain the gospel and trying to explain the death of Yeshua, they pulled out this song. They pulled out this section. And they used it to explain the death of Jesus. This section answers a lot of questions about Yeshua and his mission and his ministry. This one little section, this one little thing. I walked you through it last night. That's the piece that I walked you through. Do you remember? In Isaiah?
Yes.
Yeah. So this one little section explains, why did Jesus die? How come people don't believe it? Why did no one in his generation think about that? How is it that he could be Yahweh's servant and be rejected by Yahweh's people? Seem clear?
Servant. What do you mean, how can he be a servant and be rejected by Yahweh's people?
Well, it's a confusing idea that Yahweh's like, hey, that's my people. And Yahweh's like, hey, that's my servant. And then the story is, my people will reject my servant. That's kind of confusing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to fit. What do you not get? Ask a question.
Like, I don't get, like, what do you mean by people are going to reject Yahweh's servant?
Oh, well, in this passage, the servant is mistreated by Yahweh's people. He receives a blow from them. They think he's a nobody.
I don't get why that's weird.
Oh, why it's weird? Well, it's weird to a lot of people. When the gospel first happened around 2,000 years ago, it was a huge upset. The idea that you have Jews going around saying, oh, our Messiah's already come. And then you have other Jews saying, what do you mean the Messiah's already come? Oh, that guy that you guys rejected and had killed, Yeshua of Nazareth, that's our Messiah. To a lot of Jews, that's ridiculous. A lot of Judeans in the time of Yeshua would have said, "What? How is that possible? That makes no sense. If he's our Messiah, we would have recognized him. We would have received him. This is the promised Messiah, right?" And so that's a very confusing thing for the first people who received the word
They
of the
need
gospel.
recognized. They haven't seen him. But recognized from what they've heard.
Well, there were a lot of stories being told to them. A Messiah is coming. A Messiah is coming. He's going to descend from David. He's going to rebuild the temple. He's going to bring in the ingathered. He's going to bring the tribes of Israel back to the land. These types of pictures, these types of hopes, right? So they had all these expectations about this guy that would come, and so they were kind of, as a people, a lot of the people were waiting and they wanted to recognize him when his day came, right?
Yeah.
How upset do you think some people were when certain Jews started saying, "Oh, he already came. You missed him."
They probably heard. They probably felt horrible.
Yeah, they did feel horrible. A lot. We actually have an instance of Acts where people the phrase is like they're cut to the wick, like they're hearing Peter tell the story about Yeshua, and they're just like, "Oh, God, how did this happen? What do we do? What do we do now?" You know. And one of the ways that I think one of the reasons that the first apostles used the servant song.
If he only became a man,
Yeah.
how was he able to do miracles?
Okay, that is a different question for another video. For now, one thing that I want to say, because you actually helped me think about something. If people were upset that they missed him, then one of the reasons you could use this song is to comfort Israel. You could actually use this song to comfort Israel and say, "It's okay that you missed him. God already knew that you would miss him. Look at this prophecy that was written hundreds and hundreds of years before. The Messiah, God's servant, was going to come, and his people were going to reject him, and nobody was going to realize it. He's going to be cut off from the land of the living, and no one in his generation is going to give it thought. They're not going to understand it." Right?
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, you could say that part of the reason that this song is used as much as it is by the early Jewish apostles is to comfort Israel and to say, "Look, it did happen. And look, yes, you did reject the Messiah, but God knew that would happen. And you can turn to him, you know." All right, well, I basically wanted to touch on the idea that this song is very important for explaining the death of Yeshua and how it would have been used, why it would have been used by the early apostles. So I think that's good. That's just a quick little thing. All right, bro.